let's review another Harry Potter film. This one is a... Can I help you?
Do you mind if I close the drapes?
Sure. What are you doing here?
Well, I'm more comfortable in an off-grid environment, and you already got the candle thing going, so I figured, are you grounded?
What? Well, I like to think so. I don't always dress up like a wizard.
Hello there.
Are you supposed to be Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Obi-Wan. Oh, there's a name I haven't heard since, before you were born.
Yeah, right. I've seen your show. There's never been any time where people weren't calling you Obi-Wan. And don't even pretend like you've never owned a droid. You've been hanging out with R2 and 3PO your whole life.
But I never actually owned them. Padme owned R2, and Darth Vader made 3PO when he was just a little boy.
But you act like you've never seen them before when you find them with Luke.
That's just a thing R2 and I do. It's a joke. You don't get it. Who are you supposed to be, Saul Goodman?
No, I'm not Jimmy. I'm his brother Chuck. I have an electromagnetic allergy. Are you grounded?
Well, if you ask my friend Anakin what kind of ground I have, I believe he'll tell you. It's the high ground.
Ugh, please stop it with the quotes.
These are the lines people want to hear.
What are you guys doing here anyway?
Well, you want to do a review of Better Call Saul, and I've known Jimmy, Saul, my whole life. I thought I could help out.
Yes, I do want to do a Better Call Saul review, but I got like 5 more f***ing Harry Potter movies to review.
Oh, but they split the last book into 2 movies.
What? The last one? But the 5th was the big one. Oh man, 6 more movies? Ah, f*** me.
These aren't the shows you want to talk about. You want to talk about me, Obi-Wan.
Yes, I do have a lot I want to say about Star Wars, but I wanted to start from the beginning and be more organized about it, from a certain point of view.
Well, now you're doing it. Do you see that?
Shut up. Look, I was partway through the Obi-Wan series when I decided to watch the first half of the last season of Better Call Saul. It's messy and confusing, which is why I wanted to get it all organized before talking about it, but I was so struck by the difference in writing quality of the 2 shows that I thought perhaps a comparison of the 2 would be more useful than individual reviews.
What do I have in common with him? You and I share a symbolic circle. What happens to one will affect the other. You must understand this.
Knock it off now, Alec Guinness. If the 2 of you would just sit down, I could explain. Alright, you are both prequels. Something a lot of people say never works because you know ahead of time what can and can't happen to the characters because you've seen their future in the original story. It's certainly harder to do this in a single movie because you only have a couple hours for your beginning, middle, and end, and all the events are kind of funneling towards a known destination. But a prequel series has a lot more time for twists and turns to develop, especially if we meet our characters and they seem completely different from how we saw them in the original story. And this is where Better Call Saul excels. But I guess we can't talk about Better Call Saul until we talk about the series that's a prequel to Breaking Bad. In a nutshell, Breaking Bad is about Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher who is diagnosed with cancer. He can't afford treatment and is also concerned about providing a nest egg for his family after he dies. He needs to make a lot of money fast, so he uses his chemistry knowledge to make the best damn crystal meth you've ever had. It's practically magical. He knows how to make it, but he doesn't know how to sell it, so he enlists the help of an ex-student turned drug dealer, Jesse Pinkman. Their partnership leads him deeper and deeper into the drug trade. Walter's meth is so good, it attracts the attention of the big-time cartels, and deeper he descends into the hole he's dug for himself. In Season 2, he needs some legal representation for his not-so-legal dealings, and is introduced to a shady lawyer named Saul Goodman.
Saul Goodman.
A.K.A. Jimmy McGill.
A.K.A. Slipping Jimmy. I knew he'd end up like that. I'll never can't change its spots.
You were no help, Chuck. You never believed in him.
Because I knew him.
Wow, really?
Look, I love him, but he's a criminal at heart.
You're problematic. We're getting off topic. What I want to do is to compare your 2 prequels. My series is a prequel sequel. Yeah, it's a prequel to the original trilogy and a sequel to the prequel trilogy. But what I learned from comparing your 2 shows is that when it comes to prequels, the most important thing is the how of it all. Now, The how is important to any story. If how things happen in your story is uninteresting, then you have a poor story in any genre. But with a prequel, given that the destination is known and what can and can't happen is kind of restricted, the how becomes everything. How the main character gets from the start of the prequel to the original story is all you have. If the destination is known, then the journey itself has to be fantastic. Better Call Saul does a great job of this. We know Saul from Breaking Bad as a completely unethical, weaselly lawyer who doesn't care about the actual legality of what he does or the obvious guilt of the people he represents, as long as he's making money.
$10,000.
At the start of his prequel, he's a public defender working for peanuts and barely making ends meet. How is he going to end up as the Saul we know from Breaking Bad?
If you knew Slipping Jimmy like I do, that's no surprise.
Well, that's what we find out over the course of the series. What I find so interesting about the character of Jimmy is how many hooks people have in him. His girlfriend and future wife Kim, who's a practicing lawyer, tries to pull him into the light, and his old friend from his glory days tries to pull him into the dark. Jimmy wants to follow in his brother Chuck's footsteps and become a respectable and admired lawyer, but Chuck doesn't believe Jimmy will ever change his scheming ways and pulls strings behind Jimmy's back to interfere with him advancing his career. We see that Kim does enjoy doing little scams like getting out of paying for a meal with Jimmy, so we start to wonder, even though Kim is trying to steer Jimmy towards the light, maybe Jimmy will corrupt her. When Jimmy finds out that the respectable path is blocked, he reverts to more underhanded tactics, but is still trying to do good for people that need help. He's doing bad things for good reasons, so he's not completely Saul Goodman yet, but he's getting there. It's a long, slow character burn, and you're always wondering, what is the thing that's going to lock him into that person that we see in Breaking Bad? But it's not just about Jimmy. Another popular character for Breaking Bad, Mike Emertron, gets just as much fleshing out as Jimmy does. In Breaking Bad, Mike is working for Gus Fring, a powerful drug distributor, and Saul on the side. Fun fact, this very popular character was created at the last minute when Bob Odenkirk was unavailable due to scheduling conflicts.
Saul Goodman sent me.
At the start of Better Call Saul, Mike is a parking lot attendant at the courthouse Saul frequently works at, and they do not like each other. How does Mike end up working for Gus and Saul? And hey, there's this other character, Hector Salamanca, a Don in the drug cartel. For the entirety of Breaking Bad, he's confined to a wheelchair and is able to communicate only via a bell.
What, you don't like them?
At the start of Better Call Saul, he's fully able-bodied, so now we get to see how he ends up in the wheelchair. All of these hows are interesting, which is what makes the show work despite the end results being known. Hell, I was even intrigued by how they dug the hole in the ground. Well, this hole in the ground is a high-tech super-secret meth lab operated by Gus in Breaking Bad. We never see how this impressive engineering feat is accomplished in Breaking Bad. We just accept it because we know Gus is a highly intelligent man with the drive and resources to make something like this happen. But in Better Call Saul, we get to see how it's made. And it's an interesting story of its own. They even made the hole in the ground interesting. So let's compare this to Obi-Wan.
Oh, finally.
Obi-Wan's story takes place between episodes 3 and 4. The Republic has fallen, the Jedi are almost wiped out, and he's gone into hiding. And he's understandably depressed about what happened between him and Anakin.
He was the chosen one. It was said he would destroy the Sith, not join them.
Okay, take it easy, not Alec Guinness, but I'm still a pretty good actor. It's a good place to start emotionally, but narratively, it has its limitations. We know he's here to watch over Luke, and from what it looks like in episode 4, he's never left the planet.
Hello there.
So how can he have an adventure when he's supposed to sit tight on Tatooine?
Well, I'll tell you. Someone kidnaps Leia, and her father, Bail Organa, asked me to rescue her.
Bail Organa's a pretty high-ranking politician, so he must have some pretty good security around him. So how do the bad guys kidnap his daughter? Do they find a weakness in the security protocols and exploit it? Or wait until he's out in public and more exposed? Or maybe they blackmail an insider for information?
They wait for her to wander off, and then grab her.
That's how.
The trees put up a pretty good fight.
So now that she's kidnapped, how do you find her?
So the story is, Bail tells me they took her to Dayu, so I go there and ask the first person I see if they know anyone that could help me. Well, she's no help, but the second person I talk to takes me to someone who suggests a good place to start looking, and it just happens to be the exact place where they're holding Leia. Mystery solved.
Now that you know where she's being held captive, how are you going to get her out of there?
Well, I sneak in there, bust a few skulls, and then I walk out with her. Easy peasy.
Can you see how these hows are not very interesting?
How should these hows be done?
With some intelligence and creativity? For example, in Better Call Saul, Mike wants to disrupt Hector's drug supply but doesn't want any suspicion to come back his way. He finds where Hector's men stashed their guns before crossing into the US border and being searched. So, Mike puts some cocaine in a pair of shoes and hangs them above the spot where the truck stops. As the men stash their guns, he fires a few rounds into the air to make them believe it's just a hunter or a target shooter in the area and has nothing to do with them.
Cazadores.
As they drive away, he shoots the shoe, which showers a bit of cocaine on the truck, which is detected by a drug-sniffing dog at the inspection station, which brings all sorts of unwanted attention on Hector's operation. Mission accomplished, and in such a way that not only can it not be tracked back to Mike, it can't be tracked back to anyone. It appears to be just bad luck. How he did it was interesting. Remember when you were stuck in the hangar bay because the roof doors wouldn't open up and Reva was coming to get you?
Of course, I was there.
How did you deal with that situation?
Well, Leia looks for the circuit breaker to open the main hangar doors. We close the outer doors. Can't shoot through those.
So when Reva cuts through the doors and the stormtroopers come in shooting, how do you hold them off?
We shoot back and close some more doors. Eventually, Leia finds the circuit breaker, which allows us to open the hangar doors. We hop in a ship and leave. That's how we get out of there, through the doors.
Opening and closing doors is not interesting, creative, or intelligent. It's just the most basic of plot mechanics. Things and stuff are happening, but with no depth or complexity. It's all just bleh. Back me up on this.
No, I'm not going to involve in this discussion.
Well, you're no help, Chuck. Interestingly enough, the Obi-Wan story was originally planned to be a theatrical film, and so was Boba Fett for that matter. But when Solo, a Star Wars story, underperformed at the box office, likely being the first Star Wars movie to lose money, Lucasfilm canceled the Obi-Wan and Boba Fett movies. They were redeveloped into the Disney Plus series that we've seen. When watching the series, people were saying it felt like a 2-hour movie stretched out to a 6-part miniseries. After the series aired, one of the original writers of the theatrical version of Obi-Wan, Hussein Amini, talked about how his original story was adapted into the miniseries. And guess what? Those parts in the middle that people felt were needless bloat were not part of his original story. The writing credits can contest to this. When the story borrowed from his original script, he gets credit. The middle episodes, the ones where his story was pretty much split open and a bunch of extra filler was dumped into the middle of it, are not credited to him. When the behind-the-scenes development process can be deduced from the end product, that's a big problem. Every story is written and developed, but it shouldn't feel like it's been written and developed. But I don't want to talk about Obi-Wan anymore. I want to address the big elephant in the room. Is Better Call Saul better than Breaking Bad? I think so. I can see if you like Breaking Bad more. Bigger and crazier things happen in Breaking Bad. If that's your bag, I get it. There are a lot more damn moments in Breaking Bad. Need I mention liquid corpses or tortoise heads? I enjoyed those moments too, but Walter started on this journey to make some quick cash to leave a nest egg for his family, and I don't really like his family.
Then why don't you just fucking die already? Just give up and die.
Dude, you didn't even bleep it. And I should feel bad for Skylar. She's totally the victim in the situation she finds herself in, but I came here to see Walter, and she's getting in the way of that. And sometimes she deals with things in a passive-aggressive way I find really annoying. Again, I'm sorry. I should empathize with you, but please shut up and let Walter have his little adventures unimpeded. And need I mention the in-laws? Does anybody care about Maria's kleptomania that goes nowhere? And Hank's endless male bravado gets annoying real fast. He acts less like that as the series goes on, and the Hank we see in Better Call Saul, the prequel, is the less annoying Hank from the end of Breaking Bad. I think they realized it needed to be toned down, but what was that point of his whole rock collecting phase?
It's a mineral collection.
Okay, they're minerals. Seriously. This is just me, but I don't care about characters who hit drug-addled rock bottoms. And I don't mean to make light of people with real-life addiction problems, but in dramatic narratives, I find this situation to be limiting. Those characters tend to get all wrapped up in themselves and want everyone just to leave me alone, man, and you're not the boss of me, and you never appreciated me, and it's my life, let me do what I want, man. And I start looking at my watch, wondering when they're going to do something interesting. And one last nitpick. Sickness is kind of an annoying motivation for long-form narratives. Works fine in shorter stories, but you can only listen to Walter hack up a lung for so many scenes before it gets on your nerves. No wonder his cancer went into remission in the middle of the series, and then conveniently comes back when it's time to wrap things up. I still think it's a great show, but Better Call Saul is also a great show that is more grounded and doesn't have as many problems. I think Saul only has one problem, and that is, it is a slow burn. Jimmy gets fed up with things at the end of season 1 and makes a vow that sounds a lot like he's going to start being Saul tomorrow.
I know what stopped me. And you know what? It's never stopping me again.
But it's still a long ways off. I didn't watch Breaking Bad until the entire series was done, and I'm glad I waited to binge watch it because it has a lot of cheap cliffhangers at the end of a lot of episodes. It's easy to create a cliffhanger just by stopping an intense scene in the middle of itself. I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't stop an episode in the middle of the scene. That's why it's called a scene. What? There was one episode of Breaking Bad that ended with a shootout starting. What? F you! So I decided to wait until all of Better Call Saul was done before watching it. Breaking Bad was 5 seasons long, so I started watching Better Call Saul when I saw that there was 5 seasons on Netflix. Well, much to my dismay, turns out Saul is 6 seasons long, and there's a 2-year gap between seasons 5 and 6 because Bob Odenkirk had a heart attack, and then COVID came along and caused all sorts of delays. Now I'm like every other schmo having to wait for the new episodes to broadcast. It might have been that expectation, that season 5 was the last one and it was going to wrap everything up, that soured me a bit on season 5. Being the slow burn that it is, it felt to me like season 5 was the right time to wrap things up. And there's a major character who doesn't make it past season 3 whose absence is really felt in the latter episodes, though there are a few flashbacks to soften that blow. Now would be a good time to mention the quality of the flashbacks in Better Call Saul. Some people think flashbacks are a crutch, but Saul always uses them with such good effect. They always give us some new background on a character's past and motivation that recontextualizes what we thought we knew. After a flashback, I would often think, oh, that's why he doesn't like that guy, he got screwed over by him before, or, oh, no wonder he's such a jerk, he's been treated like this his whole life, etc. It was always good information. Now, compare that to Obi-Wan's flashbacks. The big one was the scene with Obi-Wan and Anakin sparring before things went south between them. Lots of fans really enjoyed seeing these characters and the original actors together again, but what was the point of the flashback? It was just Obi-Wan reminiscing in the middle of the series. Pentex Productions made a fan edit of this series and cut it down to theatrical movie length. This flashback was intercut with the final fight at the end of the series. This made it feel like Obi-Wan was recalling that earlier fight with Anakin in order to figure out a way to defeat him in this battle. It gave some narrative depth to the flashback that wasn't there before. This is a great example for those who don't pay much attention to editing. How you're given your information can change what the information means. An editor can take a scene and change its meaning based on the context of the surrounding shots. That's the power of good editing. Anyway, it was during the gap between season 5 and 6 of Better Call Saul that we got Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 2, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan. I was 2/3 the way through Obi-Wan when I started watching the last season of Better Call Saul, and I was just struck by how much better the writing was. The first half of season 6 was so good, I completely forgiven any perhaps wrongly perceived problems with season 5. While I'd wish season 5 had wrapped things up, I was hoping season 6 would keep on going and never end. I mean, give me more. This is great stuff.
Well, my show had a lot of great stuff in it too. It was thrilling, exciting, and action-packed. Your opinion is changing.
Your Jedi mime tricks won't work on me. Look, I could go on forever about Better Call Saul. The writing is great, the actors are great, and the cinematography is great. They are the kings of attaching the camera to stuff. I love these shots. I could watch them on an endless loop, especially the upper right one and the lower left one. Oh, they're all brilliant. And I feel bad referring to Kim as Jimmy's girlfriend earlier because it belittles how important she is to the story and the fantastic job that Rhea Seehorn does with the character. I was on the edge of my seat near the end of the series wondering what she would or would not do. Don't do it, Kim. Don't do it. Oh, Kim, you're doing it. You're doing it. But the real capper on the show, as far as our discussion about prequels goes, is that I think Better Call Saul is the best prequel ever. I've never seen anything that functions as a prequel better than this. You could watch the Star Wars prequel trilogy before watching the original trilogy, and it might ruin a few surprises, like one of the biggest ones of all time.
No, I am the
But they tell a coherent linear story when watched in episode order, whereas Better Call Saul works better when you know the future of these characters. You understand the weight and significance of events more when they happen, knowing what they're going to lead to. And trying to wrap things up quickly, no, I don't want Star Wars to become a slow character burn like Better Call Saul. That's not the argument I was trying to make. I'm arguing for more interesting stories from Star Wars, especially if you're going to be telling them around the timelines of the theatrical films. You have to be more creative and interesting when working inside those narrative constraints. Anyway, you guys can leave now. I've got like 5 more Harry Potter films to do. 6 parts. They split the last one into 2. Don't remind me.
Hello there. We're leaving now.
Where we're going?
Yes, get moving. Oh. What the hell was that?
It used to sound scary.
See you in the sequel.
Don't count on it, sir.